Good day, fight fans, and welcome back to Pressure Point.
He had Tom bloodied up, and Tom didn't want to continue in the fight.
Tom Aspinall was never meant to steal the spotlight, until one brutal eye poke turned everything upside down. Within minutes, headlines exploded across social media. Dana White refuses to pay Aspinall, and EFC's golden boy walks away. But what really went down that night revealed something way darker than anyone ever imagined. And it all started in Abu Dhabi. Before we dive in, smash that subscribe button. It's free, and it keeps you in the loop. It was the 25th of October, 2025, UFC 321. The Etihad Arena was packed to the rafters, lights flashing, fans roaring. Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gane. The fight that was supposed to mark the dawn of a new heavyweight era, after John Jones quietly bowed out months before. This was Tom's night to shine, his moment to prove that the heavyweight throne was officially his. But destiny had other plans. The first round was smooth and technical, Gane's footwork was sharp, and Tom was charging in with power and confidence. Everything looked picture perfect, until disaster struck at exactly 4:35 into round one. Cyril extended his left hand, and his fingers plunged straight into both of Tom's eyes. It wasn't just a light graze, it was a brutal double eye poke that sent the champ crashing to the canvas, screaming, "I can't see." Referee Jason Herzog immediately halted the fight as doctors rushed in. The crowd went silent. You could feel the tension dripping in the air. Moments later, the official ruling came. No contest. Tom's title defense was gone in an instant. And instead of celebrating, he was rushed to the hospital, barely able to open his eyes. Tests later confirmed a severe corneal abrasion. No permanent damage, but bad enough to end the fight right there, according to the BBC. What was meant to be his crowning night had turned into chaos. But while Tom was being treated in Abu Dhabi, the internet was already going wild. Within hours, hashtags like #FreeAspinall and #DenadiDidi were trending everywhere. Twitter threads, Reddit posts, YouTube thumbnails, all claiming that Dana White refused to pay Tom's purse, or that he had quit the UFC entirely.
He had Tom bloodied up, and Tom didn't want to continue in the fight.
Some even said he was walking away from the sport forever. And the craziest part, none of it was true. To get to the bottom of this madness, you have to rewind just a few days before UFC 321. Tom's father and longtime coach, Andy Aspinall, gave an innocent interview that accidentally lit the fuse for a full-blown misinformation storm. Speaking to MMA Mania, Andy said he's got 2 or 3 fights left on his UFC deal. "I don't want him to sign a new one, boxing for sure. More money, that was it." A father casually dreaming out loud about his son exploring other opportunities after his contract was up. But online, that quote exploded like a bomb. Suddenly, headlines twisted his words beyond recognition. Aspinall leaves UFC for boxing, and Dana refuses to pay champion. Even big pages like MMA Uncensored jumped on the trend, spreading the false rumor that Tom's purse was being withheld.
Both guys are not injured, so as soon as possible.
The internet had built a story that never even existed. In reality, Tom got every penny he was owed, a full $500,000 base pay, plus his pay-per-view share, which insiders estimated around $3.5 million, according to Sherdog. But by then, social media didn't care about the truth. Outrage was trending, and people were feeding off it. Meanwhile, Dana White faced the storm head-on at the UFC 321 post-fight press conference. Reporters wanted answers, fans demanded explanations, and the media was waiting for a soundbite to go viral. Dana walked up to the podium with that familiar cold expression, his tone sharp, his patience clearly wearing thin. When someone asked his thoughts on the stoppage, Dana delivered one blunt line that would set the MMA world ablaze. That single sentence, ripped out of context, was all it took for social media to paint him as heartless and disrespectful. The backlash came instantly, clips were edited, captions were twisted, and the fire kept spreading. One freak accident had turned into a digital circus, leaving everyone wondering, was this just bad luck, or was something way bigger happening behind the scenes? Within minutes, that post-fight clip was chopped, edited, and blasted across the internet with headlines screaming, "Dana calls Aspinall a quitter." The footage was twisted, the quote ripped apart, and the story took on a life of its own. What everyone conveniently ignored was the rest of Dana's statement, where he actually said he wanted to rebook the rematch as soon as Tom's eye healed. There was no hostility, no withheld paycheck, nothing shady. Just a frustrated promoter trying to rescue a main event that had gone completely off the rails. But online, context didn't stand a chance. Fans had already made up their minds. In their eyes, Dana White had turned on his own champion. Later that night, another clip leaked from inside the locker room. The grainy video showed Tom pacing furiously, shouting, "All that training for that." It was an emotional moment, caught right after doctors confirmed he couldn't continue. A raw reaction any fighter would have, after months of preparation gone in seconds. Yahoo Sports later verified the footage, confirming it wasn't some meltdown. It was heartbreak caught on camera. Still, the internet spun it differently. Within hours, YouTubers and gossip accounts were posting fake titles like Aspinall quits, UFC overpay dispute, or Tom storms out after fight cancelled. None of it real. Every single video was pure fabrication, but the timing made it all believable.
And it's not like it was a legal technique where he got punched and it happened. It was an illegal technique, an eye poke. So you have to cut him some slack.
Tom had been open before about the UFC's long layoffs and how frustrating inactivity could be. Fans already suspected some quiet tension between him and the promotion after he waited over a year for his title defense. Add his father's casual "boxing for more money" comment, Dana's harsh-sounding quote, and a clip of Tom shouting backstage. Suddenly, it all fit a perfect narrative, one that wasn't true, but felt too real to ignore. Still, not everyone bought into the hype. On Submission, Radio's post-fight show, analysts Dean Thomas and Michael Bisping went straight for the truth. Dean said it flat out. Tom didn't quit. He protected his health. Bisping, who knows the pain of fighting half-blind, after losing partial vision in one eye, backed him up, saying Tom made the only rational choice. But not everyone agreed. Across social media, Chael Sonnen and Anthony Smith threw verbal jabs of their own, arguing that real champions find a way to fight through it. That clash, between the warrior mentality and basic human limits, kept the fire alive. Suddenly, people started comparing Tom's situation to Francis Ngannou's messy split, with the UFC painting Aspinall as the next victim of Dana's so-called power politics. The irony, Tom never once mentioned money. He never blamed the UFC, never hinted at walking away. Nothing. His last tweet, dated the 26th of October, was just a promo post for his fight. No drama, no anger, no subtle digs at Dana. According to Tom's exclusive behind-the-scenes post on X, both fighters had already been paid in full, and the UFC was even working to book a rematch for early 2026. But even with the truth out there, it barely made a dent. Because by now, people weren't chasing facts, they were chasing feelings. The UFC's biggest main event had just crumbled. The crowd booed, the champ was heartbroken, and the boss looked cold on camera. The whole scene felt off, and fans could sense it. And underneath all that noise, something deeper started brewing. While Dana White didn't refuse to pay Tom, and Tom didn't quit the UFC, their relationship suddenly felt tense. You can feel it in Dana's interviews. The way he avoids saying Tom's name when talking about the division, the subtle tone shifts, and Andy Aspinall's persistent comments about life after MMA. It's not open war yet, but it's definitely heating up. As this story unfolds, it's becoming clear that this isn't just about one freak injury anymore. What started as a rumor about money has turned into something personal. A slow burning rift between the UFC's most dominant promoter and the man many believe could define the next era of heavyweight fighting. By the time the sun rose over Abu Dhabi, the story had completely transformed. The official report said no contest. The medical file said corneal abrasion. But the public narrative, that had mutated into a full-blown saga, Aspinall versus Dana White, and the wildest part, Dana never even saw it coming. Sitting at that post-fight presser, energy drink in hand, he thought he was just giving the usual rundown. Injuries, future matchups, pay-per-view numbers. He didn't realize that one offhand line, one frustrated sentence about Tom not wanting to continue, would spark a storm that would make it look like he turned his back on his own champion. What began as a freak accident in the cage had spiraled into a PR nightmare. And now, everyone was waiting to see who'd throw the next punch, inside or outside the octagon. The clip, stripped of its full context, exploded like wildfire overnight. Fans slowed it down, added dramatic music, and spliced it together with screenshots of Tom's swollen, red eyes and his father's now infamous quote, "Boxing for sure. More money." In just hours, it painted a story that never existed, a tale of betrayal, greed, and power. Suddenly, the world believed the UFC's own golden boy had been abandoned by the man who built him up. On screen, looked like a promoter refusing to back his fighter, a champion, supposedly betrayed. And the UFC brand, dragged through yet another scandal about fighter pay, loyalty, and respect. But anyone who's followed Dana White long enough knows, this isn't new ground. Dana's made a career walking the fine line between genius promoter and unapologetic antagonist. He's the man who creates stars, and then breaks them when they stop playing by his rules. From Tito Ortiz and Randy Couture to John Jones and Francis Ngannou, history is packed with fighters who went toe-to-toe with Dana once they got too powerful. And now, whispers were growing louder that Tom Aspinall could be next on that list. After UFC 321, multiple MMA outlets started revisiting an uncomfortable fact. Tom was still locked into the same 8-fight contract he'd signed before becoming interim champion. That deal reportedly paid him around $500,000 per FIG8, plus bonuses. Not terrible by UFC standards, but compared to what top heavyweight boxers earn, it was crumbs. Suddenly, Andy Aspinall's comment about boxing for sure, more money, didn't sound so wild after all. But what really stung wasn't the words, it was when they dropped. Just as Tom had become the UFC's most marketable heavyweight since Stipe Miocic's reign, young, polite, devastating in the cage, and a walking PR dream, Tom was supposed to be the future. The UFC had poured millions into building him up across Europe, and yet, his own father was publicly hinting that staying with Dana White might not be worth it. To Dana, that must have felt like a slap in the face. Then, not even 24 hours after the eye poke disaster, reporters started pressing Dana directly. They wanted to know if Andy Aspinall's words were true. Was Tom thinking of ditching the UFC for boxing? Dana's reply was curt, almost dismissive. "He'll be fine," he said. But to fans already ready to distrust the promotion, that sounded less like reassurance and more like a warning. Reddit and YouTube blew up instantly. Threads comparing Tom to Francis Ngannou gained tens of thousands of upvotes overnight. Fans wrote posts like, "Dana's too proud to pay another heavyweight what he's worth." Others said, "History's repeating itself." Everyone remembered how Dana refused to raise Ngannou's pay despite his title reign, and how he mocked Francis when he left, only for Ngannou to later secure a multi-million-dollar boxing deal. The internet couldn't resist connecting the dots. But behind all the noise, people close to Tom were telling a completely different story. According to MMA Fighting's backstage sources, Tom wasn't angry about money at all. He was furious about respect. What really got under his skin was Dana's comment, implying he didn't want to fight for a fighter like Tom. That cuts deep. This was a man who trained for months, carried a pay-per-view card across an entire continent, and left the cage nearly blind. To have that effort reduced to a one-liner, he didn't want to continue, felt like a dagger to the heart. And that's where the real tension began. Not from money, but from pride. Tom isn't your typical UFC champion. He's calm, quiet, and media shy. No trash talk, no outbursts. Just business. But that calm hides something dangerous, a silent stubbornness. When Tom feels disrespected, he doesn't rant, he doesn't go online, he disappears. And that's exactly what happened next. After the 26th of October, Tom went completely dark. No tweets, no interviews, no statements. His social media fell silent. Fans took that silence as proof he was done with the UFC. But insiders said, it was the opposite. Tom's way of saying, "I'm not playing your PR game." He was shutting down the noise and letting his absence do the talking. Meanwhile, Dana did what Dana always does. He kept the spotlight on himself. Just 2 days later, outside the UFC Performance Institute in Las Vegas, a TMZ-style camera crew caught him mid-conversation. He brushed off the controversy, saying, "I got no problem with Tom, he's one of the good ones." Then, he laughed off the online outrage, saying fans needed to chill with this internet BS. But by that point, internet BS had become the story. The idea that the UFC tried to force Tom to fight blind, or refuse to pay him, had evolved into full-blown fan fiction. Influencers, podcasters, and click chasers all had their own inside sources. One claimed Tom was secretly in talks with British boxing promoters. Another said Dana was freezing him out, stripping his title in silence. None of it could be verified, but it didn't need to be, because in MMA, perception is reality. And that perception only got deeper when former fighters started joining the drama. Chael Sonnen, never one to miss a headline, dropped a 10-minute video titled, "Tom Aspinall will regret crossing Dana White." He spun the story like a veteran showman, hinting that Tom was learning the hard way, how UFC politics really worked. His words added gasoline to a fire already blazing out of control. The narrative had shifted once again. Tom Aspinall wasn't just recovering from an injury anymore. He was suddenly part of a power struggle, another fighter caught in the same cycle that had taken down legends before him. And the wild part, the man himself hadn't said a single word. The silence was louder than any statement, and the MMA world was left wondering, was Tom quietly plotting his next move? Or was he just done with all of it? Chael Sonnen didn't hold back in his video. He said, "Dana's been in this game longer than these guys have been alive. You don't embarrass the company on a main event night and think you'll get rewarded for it." His words hit hard, and fans ate it up, but not everyone agreed. Michael Bisping, who actually trained alongside Tom, clapped back instantly, saying, "The man couldn't see. Anyone criticizing him has never been in there." That clash between veterans summed up the chaos perfectly. Pride versus empathy, control versus compassion. And what makes this whole mess even more explosive is timing. Dana White's UFC is in another major transition period. Jon Jones is gone, McGregor's comeback fizzled, and the company's biggest pay-per-view stars are either semi-retired or chasing side projects. The UFC desperately needs a new face, someone young, marketable, and dominant. And Tom Aspinall, at 32, looked like the perfect answer. He's got knockout power, a clean image, and enough charisma to carry Europe on his back. The guy was built to lead a new era. But here's the thing. For Dana White to build an era, he needs control. And right now, that control is slipping fast. The last heavyweight who pushed back on Dana's power was Francis Ngannou, and we all saw how that story ended. Francis walked away, fought Tyson Fury, and made more money in one night than he earned in his entire UFC career. Dana spent months mocking him, calling it a mistake, saying Francis would fade into irrelevance. Then, boom. Ngannou's boxing debut made global headlines and embarrassed the UFC's whole business model overnight. The optics were brutal. And now, the thought of losing another heavyweight champion under similar circumstances, even just as rumor, would be a nightmare for the UFC brand. So behind closed doors, the company's been moving quietly. According to The Independent, UFC execs have already started discussing an early contract extension for Tom, an 8-fight deal packed with performance bonuses, and even a European PPV clause, something only a handful of stars have ever had. The goal: lock Tom down before this rumor storm becomes reality. But so far, Tom hasn't signed anything. Insiders say he's waiting, letting his eye fully heal before entering talks. It's a smart move, and Dana knows it. That's why his public tone has changed. Less dismissive now, more diplomatic. Gone are the snappy one-liners, in their place, subtle compliments. And we'll see what happens phrases. Classic Dana damage control. Still, the optics are ugly. Every time Dana praises another contender, whether it's Pavlovich, Almeida, or Blades, fans see it as a dig at Tom. Every silent day from Tom's social media feeds becomes a statement that he's rebelling. And each time an old clip of UFC 321's post-fight presser resurfaces online, it adds another layer to the myth that these two men are enemies at war. But the truth, it's more complicated than that. Beneath the rumors and the online chaos, there's real frustration, but also mutual respect. Dana might be stubborn, but he's no fool. He knows the heavyweight division can't survive another exodus like Ngannou's. And Tom, for all his pride, knows the UFC stage is still the biggest in the world. The one that makes legends. Both men need each other, even if neither wants to admit it. That's what makes this whole thing so combustible. Two alpha personalities, both driven by control, locked in a silent standoff. Because once pride enters the equation, negotiations stop being about contracts. They turn into power plays. As Tom heals, trains, and quietly plans his return, it's becoming clear that his future with the UFC will depend less on what happens inside the octagon, and more on how well he handles the politics outside of it. And that's the wildest twist of all, the fighter behind the hype. It's strange, isn't it? How one man can be both the hope of a sport and the center of its most explosive rumor. Tom Aspinall never begged for headlines, never craved controversy, never tried to play the villain. He wasn't throwing chairs at press conferences or screaming about legacy into microphones. He just fought. And he fought beautifully, quietly, efficiently, like a man with nothing to prove, but everything to lose. And yet here we are, watching him be painted as a rebel, a supposed runaway, a man walking away from the UFC because Dana White refused to pay him. It sounds ridiculous, but millions believe it, maybe because, deep down, fans want to believe it. Because this story, as wild as it sounds, feels possible. For years, the UFC has trained the world to expect this exact arc. Every star rises, hits their peak, and then collides with the system. Fame, money, and pride all crashing together until the cage stops being about sport and becomes about control. To understand Tom Aspinall's silence and the dangerous mythology building around it, you have to go back, way back to where it all started, before the sold-out arenas, before the championship belts, before his name was even mentioned alongside Stipe, Ngannou, or Gain. Tom was just a lanky kid from Wigan, England, grinding in the shadows of Manchester's MMA scene. His father, Andy Aspinall, wasn't just a coach. He was one of the pioneers of British Jiu-Jitsu. Together, they built a foundation from nothing, crafting Tom into the fighter he is today. Not through fame or money, but through sweat, discipline, and grit. And now, as the rumors swirl and the spotlight burns hotter than ever, that same foundation, the one built in cold gyms and long nights, might be the only thing keeping him grounded as the world tries to rewrite his story. Tom Aspinall's story started in a small, sweat-soaked gym in Wigan, England. The kind of place where ambition smelled stronger than the cleaning spray. While other kids were out kicking footballs or chasing weekend distractions, Tom was grinding on old blue mats that had seen better days, drilling triangles, sprawls, and submissions like his life depended on it. He grew up studying the heavyweights: Andrei Arlovsky, Cain Velasquez, Brock Lesnar. But the man who truly shaped his style was Frank Mir, a cerebral killer who balanced brains with brutality. By the age of 18, Tom wasn't sparring kids. He was going toe-to-toe with grown men. His timing was unreal, his combination smooth, his ground game polished. He had boxing hands, jiu-jitsu hips, and the mindset of a sniper: calm, patient, deadly. When the UFC came calling in 2020, it felt inevitable. His debut against Jake Collier lasted just 45 seconds. A thunderous knockout that announced his arrival. Then came Alan Baudot, another knockout. Sergey Spivak, folded. Alexander Volkov, crushed. Even a freak injury against Curtis Blades couldn't stop his rise for long. Every time Tom came back, he looked sharper, more composed, more dangerous. By the time John Jones vacated the heavyweight title, there was no question. Tom Aspinall was the guy. And when UFC London erupted in 2023, watching Tom obliterate Sergey Pavlovich to become the interim heavyweight champion, British MMA finally had its hero. Pubs across England went wild. The tabloids crowned him the new era. Even Dana White himself said, "He's one of the most talented big men we've ever seen." And yet 2 years later, that same name, Dana, was trending beside headlines accusing him of refusing to pay that very champion. It's poetic, almost cruelly ironic, because what hurts most about this whole saga isn't just the rumor, it's the symbolism. For years, Dana White has built an empire on fighters who talk big, fight bigger, and trade leverage for exposure. But Tom Aspinall doesn't play that game. He doesn't chase drama, he doesn't beg for main events, and he doesn't scream for attention. He just wins. And that's terrifying for the system. A quiet champion is the hardest kind of man to control. Behind the scenes, the UFC brass knows it. According to The Independent, internal meetings began almost immediately after UFC senior executives wanted to lock Tom down. Long Zan term, an early contract extension packed with bonuses and branding power. They saw him as the face of their next European expansion, maybe even a paid Zan, per Zan View headliner, at the Awe or Wembley. But Tom, through his management team, reportedly said one word that rattled the room: wait. Not a rebellion, not a refusal. Just patience. And that patience sent shockwaves through the organization. Because in Dana's world, silence isn't comfort, it's threatening. When a fighter like Conor McGregor screams, the UFC knows how to respond. They promote, they hype, they cash in. But when someone like Aspinall goes dark, nobody knows what he's thinking. And that silence flips the whole PR machine upside down. In the absence of words, people start inventing their own, and that's exactly what's happening now. But the real question isn't what Tom's saying. It's why this rumor refuses to die. Why does it feel so believable, even when the receipts prove it false? The answer lies in history. Because this isn't the first time a UFC champion's been accused of walking away over money. Francis Ngannou walked. Demetrius Johnson was traded. Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz both aired their contract battles publicly. The UFC's track record on fighter pay, murky at best. So when fans heard whispers that Dana might have stiffed Tom Aspinall, their first reaction wasn't disbelief. It was, yay, that sounds like Dana. And that's the danger of reputation. Once people believe it, even truth can't wash it away. Meanwhile, Tom's team hasn't exactly poured water on the fire. His father, Andy Aspinall, keeps it real in interviews, saying things like, he's got 2 or 3 fights left, then we'll see. Boxing's always there. To most people, that's harmless dad talk. A proud father dreaming out loud. But to the UFC, those words sound like a red flag. Because to Dana White, boxing isn't a hobby. It's the enemy. He spent years mocking the sport, calling it corrupt, outdated, and broken. He once said, boxing's dead. The UFC is where real fighters go to make a name. So imagine his reaction hearing that his own heavyweight champion might be eyeing that same dead sport for bigger paydays. Every boxing for more money, quote, hits the UFC like a punch to the gut, or worse, to its ego. And yet, that's what makes Tom different. He's not disloyal, he's just independent. He's grateful for what the UFC gave him, but he doesn't act like he owes them his soul. That quiet sense of freedom, that refusal to dance for attention, might be his most dangerous weapon yet. But silence cuts both ways. As the days turn into weeks, and the weeks into months, the absence of updates is only fueling speculation. Some fans think Tom's secretly negotiating behind closed doors. Others believe he's waiting to make a public statement aimed directly at Dana White. But those who really know him, like Michael Bisping, see it differently. On Submission Radio, Bisping said it plainly. Tom's a good lad. He's not playing politics, he just wants to fight. According to him, Tom's focused on healing up and doing it the right way. No theatrics, no gimmicks, no drama, and that's what everyone seems to miss. Tom's not plotting revenge, he's just doing what fighters used to do before social media turned combat sports into chaos. He's letting his actions speak louder than words. It's old Dan school, it's disciplined, and right now it's working. But beneath all the PR polish, something's changed. There's a quiet shift in the air. A feeling that whatever comes next for Tom Aspinall won't just define his career. It might redefine how the UFC treats its champions from here on out. The UFC used to control every story, every headline, every narrative. Every champion's image was sculpted in Zan House. But the game has changed. The digital era flipped the script completely, and now silence isn't safety anymore. It's an invitation. Every pause becomes a rumor. Every quiet moment becomes a blank page waiting to be filled by someone else's version of the truth. And while Tom Aspinall stays quiet, his story is being rewritten daily by voices who've never once stepped inside the octagon. That's what makes this entire saga feel so much bigger than one man. It's not just about Tom versus Dana anymore. The UFC's biggest strength has always been control. Controlling who gets pushed, who gets silenced, who becomes a superstar, and who fades away. But what happens when a champion stops playing by those rules? Quits UFC might have died down, but its echo still lingers like a prophecy, waiting to come true. Everyone's asking the same question. Will Tom step back into the cage? Almost certainly. But will he stay once his contract ends? That's the part nobody knows. And it's the question Dana White really doesn't want to face. Because whether he admits it or not, the UFC needs Tom Aspinall more than Tom Aspinall needs the UFC. That's the unspoken truth. Dana can't afford to lose another heavyweight superstar to boxing. Not after Francis Ngannou's breakout success. Not after Ngannou proved there's life and big money outside the octagon. The UFC's image depends on showing the world that its fighters are paid, respected, and loyal. Losing another champion now would make that illusion crumble in an instant. Behind the smiles, press conferences, and everything's fine statements, there's a quiet chess match unfolding. A cold, strategic battle of patience and pride. Dana's trying to reassert control while keeping the brand's image polished. And Tom's playing it cool, refusing to react, refusing to give anyone a headline. You can almost feel it. This tense stillness between them, like a face-off before the bell. One wrong move could change everything. Because Tom's next step isn't just about his career. It's about power. If he stays, it proves the UFC still holds the crown. But if he walks, if he dares to take that next step outside the cage, it could redefine the entire structure of the sport. Fighters everywhere would see that silence, patience, and independence can be just as dangerous as a knockout punch. So while fans scroll and speculate, one thing is clear. Tom Aspinall isn't just healing from an injury. He's healing in plain sight, watching the system shift around him, and whether he stays loyal to the octagon or charts his own path. His next move could shake the entire fight world to its core. And that is all from Pressure Point today. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment, letting us know which story stood out to you most. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.